Hi, everyone. Welcome. So, today we are going to be talking about all the new changes, updates, things that you need to know about US immigration law, and as always, answering your questions because, again, that's why you're here, is for me to answer your questions. So, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments. If you are watching this on a replay, make sure you put your questions in the comments as well. So we are going to jump right in. I know if you're joining me, this is not my usual time. We are testing out different times to see what's going to work with my schedule and hopefully your schedule moving forward. So I completely understand if you're like, why is she on my screen at 6 o'clock? It's because I just, it's because that's the time for today. Okay. So if you don't know me already, I am U.S. immigration attorney Lillian Chukura, and I help my clients get green cards and citizenships for themselves and their families using the U.S. immigration law system. So please say hi in the comments. Ask me questions if you have any, and we are just going to jump right in. If you do not know already, I hope by now you've seen my videos, you've something of mine telling you that as of October 28th, USCIS is no longer going to accept paper checks, um, money orders, none of that. They want you to either do an ACH authorization or a credit or debit card authorization. This basically means that for you to file any application that has a fee with USCIS, you need to either have a bank account that they can take the money out of. So you will put your routing number and your account number on that form, give them authorization to take out the specific amount for your form, and then send that in with your application. Or you need to have a debit or credit card. Now, if you're like, no bank account and no debit or credit card, what do I do? According to USCIS, they are accepting prepaid cards. So you can put that amount on a prepaid card and then put the prepaid card information on the authorization form that will then be sent in with your application. One thing that I am telling people is if you are filing multiple applications, for example, if you are filing an I-130 and an I-485 and an I-765, you may think to just fill out one authorization form that covers all the applications. But personally, what I do with my clients is we do a separate authorization form for each application type. Okay, you don't have to do it that way. That's just the way I like to do it because, and the reason it's very practical. If you send in one authorization for all the fees, and USCIS rejects one of the forms, that means they're going to reject all of the forms because they can't actually process payments for the other forms because you only send them one payment. Okay, so what we do is we actually do a separate authorization for the I-130, a separate authorization for the I-485, a separate authorization for the I-765. So if USCIS wants to reject the I-765, they can do that without also rejecting the I-130 and the I-485. So really just things I've learned doing this. We've been doing the credit card authorization for a long time for our clients. So that's something we're already used to. The new thing is the ACH, like actually paying electronically with your bank account. That's very new. And there's a new form for that as well. So make sure as of October 28th, if you are filing any applications with USCIS, please use the right authorization form. And also know that if you are using a bank account, USCIS is not going to withdraw that funds the day they get your application. So if you're tracking your fund, if you're tracking your applications, just know they're not going to withdraw it right away. They may withdraw that fee like a week after you send it in. So make sure that those funds are there the whole time, just in case. okay? Just in case it takes them time to process the payment, you don't want to be in a position where they go to process the payment and there's no funds there and they have to reject the application and you have to do the whole process all over again. All right, so next thing, there's the new naturalization civics test. Unfortunately, the deadline has passed, so it is now in full force and effect. So as of October 20th, there's a new civics test. You have to pass that in order to actually get your citizenship. So that is something that is new this year. And if you filed your application before October 20th, regardless of when your interview actually is. So let's say you filed it on October 1st, but your interview is not till like April of 2026. You are still going to do the 2008 test. So even though you filed before October 20th and your interview is after October 20th, it doesn't matter. The main thing that matters is you filed your application before October 20th, so then you get to take the 2008 test, which is why I've been telling everyone, like, go and file before that deadline. I actually had a client come into my office so that we can set up her online account, file everything online so that we can beat that deadline. So just know, moving forward, if you're applying for naturalization, you're going to have to take now the harder test. But again, all the study materials are online. I don't think it's like a test that you can't pass. You can pass it. You just have to study more questions, get more questions right. It's going to be a longer process for the civics test. However, you can pass it. You just have to study, okay? Next thing that I want to cover, for those that have been asking me this, I've gotten this question so much offline, so I wanted to cover it because you may be hearing things about a parole fee of $1,000, and if you need to pay the fee. If you entered the US before October 16, 2025, and you were paroled into the US before October 16 of 2025, you do not have to pay this new fee. Okay, this fee is only for people that are paroled or re-paroled, meaning you had parole, it was ending, you asked to be paroled again, and that was approved. If you are not in one of those categories, this fee does not apply to you. So if you are paroled or re-paroled on or after October 16, 2025, you will now have to pay $1,000 for the parole. Okay, so not just the filing fee, right? So you apply for parole, you get parole. Now you have to pay $1,000 because you were approved for the parole. Whether people are actually going to be able to get parole in the first place and then worry about paying this fee, completely separate question, right? But this fee is new, and I've had a lot of people that were paroled under the Biden parole programs asking me about it. So I wanted to make sure I cover this. This parole fee does not apply to you. Okay, if your parole expired, if your parole is expiring next year, it does not apply to you because you had your parole before October 16, 2025. Okay? All right. So next thing I want to cover is the DACA updates because, again, people have been asking me, what are the changes? Has the law changed? Did the judge make a decision? Unfortunately, there's no decision when it comes to DACA. The US government basically filed a petition with the court basically saying, hey, we'll give DACA to the other states. Texas is the only state that's filing this lawsuit. So let's not let Texas people get work authorizations. Let other states be able to, people in other states be able to apply for new DACA applications and be able to get work authorizations. But let's limit the decision on just Texas because Texas is the one that filed the lawsuit. And the judge has not made a decision on that proposal from the government because the government then filed another petition with the court asking for a continuance, basically saying, hey, let's move this court date to another date. Like, let's postpone this whole thing because of the government shutdown. So the government attorneys that's supposed to be representing the US government, remember, Texas is suing the US government to end DACA. And the government has their own attorney representing them. And that attorney is basically saying, hey, I'm not able to work because I'm not getting paid. And because of the government shutdown, we don't have the funds to actually continue with this case. So basically, the court had no choice but to continue the case. And hopefully, the shutdown ends at some point soon and the case can get back on track. But as of right now, there is no decision when it comes to the proposal from the government about DACA. So if you are waiting for that, I am so sorry. You do have to wait a bit longer because we just don't know. We just don't have that decision yet. But once the decision comes out, I will make sure to let you know because it is going to affect a lot of people, right? People that qualify for DACA, but they missed the cutoff to apply before the lawsuit and everything. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people in that situation. But if this passes, if the court goes for it, then new applications can be approved and can be filed. And if you do not live in Texas, you would also be able to qualify for a work authorization. And according to the way the proposal is written, if you then move to Texas, let's say you get DACA, get a work authorization, and then you afterwards move to Texas. If you move to Texas and you are in Texas for at least 15 days, then the ruling for Texas would then apply to you and you would lose your work authorization. I say don't move to Texas, right? If you're applying for DACA, if you are waiting for your DACA to renew, if you are waiting for the new application that you filed to be processed, maybe don't move to Texas or maybe move out of Texas to give yourself the best shot of actually getting a work permit. All right. So I do see a question here, so I'm going to take that first and then we'll continue. Have interview for adjustment of status through marriage. Should take a photo album with original photos, even though I'm taking an updated 4 to 5 photo picture PDF style on a letter. Okay. All right. So, okay, let me just make sure I understand. You have an adjustment of status interview coming up. Are you so you're asking should you take a photo album with your original photos even though you're taking a PDF? You can. The officer would look at it and then give it back to you. As long as you have the PDF of the pictures, then the officer can take the PDFs. What I have seen officers do is if you go in with a photo album, they can flip through the album and take the pictures that they want and then scan those into their system and give the pictures back to you. So they don't actually keep the original pictures unless you tell them that they can keep it. Okay. But again, typically the officer would scan those into the system and then give them back to you. They don't typically keep it, but if you are going with also PDFs of the same pictures, then the officer will just keep the PDFs and maybe flip through the album, but keep the PDFs. So you will just tell the officer if it's the same exact pictures or if it's different pictures. Okay. And while we're on the topic of pictures, just remember when you send pictures or you take pictures to the interview, make sure you and your spouse are on the same page on the pictures, know where the pictures were taken, who's in the picture, because that's what the officer is really going to focus on. The officer is not going to focus on if you two are smiling or not. They're going to focus on where you were when the picture was taken. If it was an event, what was the event? If it was someone's wedding, whose baby shower, that's what they're more focused on. If there's other people in the picture, the officer is going to zoom in on the fact that there's other people in the picture and ask who are these people, and that's what the pictures are really going to do. But beyond that, just take pictures, but not like hundreds and thousands of pictures, right? Just reasonable amount of pictures. All right. So in this channel, we have talked about how, you know, free speech might not be free speech for everyone, right? Because the government has, in some situations, said that if an undocumented person, if someone in the US that's an immigrant decides to say certain things against the US government, that that will be used against them. Well, a US district court judge has ruled that international students have the same free speech protection as US citizens. So if we pull out from that, it means that all immigrants, right? If international students have the same free speech protections as US citizens, that means almost everyone. The judge didn't get into if an undocumented person has the same or anything like that. However, if international students have it, that means H-1B visa holders have it too. That means that L-1 visa holders have it too, because it's the same type of visas. They're all non-immigrant visa holders, and they, according to this judge, have the same free speech protections as US citizens. Okay. Now, while I say that, we also know that the State Department revoked visas for 6 foreign nationals from 6 different countries because of their speech when it comes to Charlie Kirk. So again, district court is saying one thing, but the government is doing something else. I think the main difference between these two situations, international students that were affected because of their speech were physically in the US when they were trying to revoke their visas. Okay. So I think that's the difference, is that they were physically in the US and then these foreigners were not in the US. That may be the difference. We don't have a lot of detail on when their visa was revoked, how it was revoked. But it seems like there's going to be a distinction made between people in the US versus people outside of the US. So if you're applying for a visa outside of the US, unfortunately, the State Department, it looks like, will use whatever you have online, whatever speech you have online against you. So again, be very careful, be very mindful of what you say, especially in public forums. If your goal is to immigrate to the US or to get a non-immigrant visa to the US and visit the US, you may want to pay attention to your speech, because that will, from what we're seeing, make a difference. Okay. All right. So the final update that I have for you is that TPS for Syria is terminated effective November 21st, 2025. So next month, TPS for Syria would terminate. However, 3 days ago, 7 Syrian nationals filed a lawsuit against the government for trying to terminate TPS for Syria. We're going to have to wait to see what happens with that. And hopefully they win their lawsuit, but we will have to wait and see. But there's definitely that going on. A lot of the TPS that have been terminated or canceled did end up having a lawsuit filed. So we're going to be following all of those to see if anyone wins, because the way these typically work is if one country wins, it becomes precedent for the other ones. And if one country loses, it becomes precedent for the other ones. Meaning the judge in one case can use the other case decision to basically say, hey, look at what happened over there. We're just going to make the same decision, or we're going to use the same reasoning. So just keep that in mind with these lawsuits. We are pulling for the people filing the lawsuits, but um, it definitely will make a difference depending on what the outcome of each of those lawsuits are. Okay. All right, so that is all the updates I have for you today. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. If you're watching this after the fact, ask me questions. I know you have some. And if there's any specific topic you want me to cover in a future video, if I can get my words out today, so if there's any topics you want me to cover in a future video, please let me know. I've been really looking at your comments and turning your questions or the topics that you tell me into videos. So please do ask me questions. Tell me what topic you are interested in and want to know more about as far as US immigration is concerned, and I will make that in the future. And if you would like to schedule a private consultation with me, I do offer a free 15-minute session where we talk about your situation, figure out options and next steps for you. If you would like to do that, you can go to my website, lilylegal.com, click on contact us, and you can schedule a free 15-minute strategy session with me. All right. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I know, again, this is a weird time. Let me know if 6 o'clock on a Friday works or if I should try a different day. I may even try a weekend just to try it out and see what works. So, again, let me know. I hope you have a great rest of your Friday, a great weekend, and stay safe out there, y'all. Bye.